Good morning. My name is Susan Reardon. I'm the Staff Hearing Officer, and I'm calling today's meeting of March 25th to order. Today we have 3 items on the agenda. Has there been any requests for continuance or withdrawal?
There have not.
No? Okay. Announcements and appeals. We have 4 appeals from last meeting. The first one was at 2140 Mission Ridge. That was appealed by a neighbor, and that's tentatively scheduled for the Planning Commission in May. And then a member of the public appealed 3 other projects, one at 1415 Mission Ridge, and that was an interior setback, and then another one at 618 San Pasqual, and that was a 4-unit condo project, and then another at 436 Corona Del Mar. Is there anybody here who would like to address the Staff Hearing Officer on items not on our agenda today? No? Seeing no one, we'll go to the first item, which is 352 Caneo Road. If the applicant would like to come up to the table.
All right. Hi.
Whenever you're ready, Doc.
Thank you. The project site, which is just under 8,000 square feet, is zoned A1, located up in the Burn area. It involves the replacement of a residence and garage that were completely destroyed by the T fire. In order to utilize the existing footings for slope stabilization purposes.
Oh, thank you. Gloria, is the TV camera on?
The applicant is requesting replacement of the existing residence and garage with a minor expansion in the area shown by yellow. The original development on site, which was constructed in 1956, was non-conforming to its interior and front yard setbacks. Therefore, the replacement and slightly larger structure will be the same. Staff's position that these minor additional amounts of encroachment are necessary to secure an appropriate improvement of rebuilding the residence and the home in its previous location, and will allow reconstruction on an undersized lot to be utilized as the residence that needs to be replaced. Staff is asking for approval of this project as submitted.
Okay. I had a question regarding the open yard, but I'll wait till after the applicant wants to make a presentation. If you can state your name and association with the project.
John Kincaid, and I'm doing the design of the drawing package for Tim McCollum.
And then you, Tim?
And, well, I just would like to encroach a little bit more than was originally there, just so we can stay outside of the existing raised foundation, so we don't have to go through the expense of removing that, and also to keep the lot stabilized.
Okay. And the orange outline here is the existing structure?
That's correct.
Previously existing, yes.
And the yellow is where you're proposing to...
That's correct.
Okay, and currently you're non-conforming to that requirement. And my question is, where on the
site is the existing non-conforming or existing open yard area, and whether you're reducing that further, because that would require an additional modification. If I could interrupt. The non-conforming open yard is here in adequate dimensions, over 1250, located in the front yard. You can see the previous development did not have the minimum 20-foot dimensions. So it was staff's understanding that the open yard was non-conforming as to its location, and continues to be in the front and in areas excess of the 1250 that's required.
Okay, so that answers my question. So it's non-conforming due to the location versus due to the size.
Correct.
Okay, so when I was reviewing it, I was wondering if in this side area here, this was what was considered their existing non-conforming open yard. Okay, thank you.
And Mr. McCollum also owns this lot over here.
Okay,
And there's nothing on it, and it's just his side yard, really.
Is there a future plan to actually merge the lots? Let me just give a little bit of history. Previously existing on this property was a large deck. The reason the deck had been built up to the property line
It's almost right to the property line.
was because this property line had not been indicated on the plans that allowed for the deck, in that the same property owner owned both. If the property owner does intend to replace that deck, it could be accomplished by merging the two lots, which are significantly undersized. So staff would, definitely recommend that type of activity to occur. Then he can put his large outdoor living space here, and along with the other lot area, the open yard will be provided more than adequate area.
And so the lot was vacant before the T-fire?
It's been vacant since the inception of the development.
Okay.
With the naked eye, could not tell the difference between this lot and the next door lot. It all has always been treated as one lot.
And they're it's kind of terrace, and this is all lawn area here. There's fruit trees here. And, I don't know if they survive, but, and Mr. McCollum's intention is to merge these lots so that in the future he can build a deck here.
Okay.
And there's no plans to build on it or anything.
All right. And the other thing, I see the plans I had to review had a parking space there, and it's been removed.
We did discuss that with the applicant. Parking within an interior yard setback is not allowed, so we did remove it from the plans for this presentation.
Okay. I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there anybody here who would wish to address the staff hearing officer on 352 Conejo Road? No? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. I would like to indicate for the record that we did receive a letter from Ms. Paula Westbury expressing concerns with the project. Have you received a copy of it? Excuse me. Well, I've read the staff report and I visited the site, and I agree with staff's conclusion in the staff report. The site is constrained. It's significantly under the minimum lot size. There's slopes involved, and the existing location of the house is the most appropriate location, and the additions that you're proposing are minor in nature. And given the great difference from Conejo Road, it would be just a minor visual change from what's existing. And I believe your encroachments in the area, in the front yard, it's just the garage, and it's 2 feet into the front yard.
Yeah, something like that.
And then in the interior yard, it's the rear corners, and I believe that those proposed additions are consistent with the intent of the zoning ordinance, and
There's
they
a small
are.
amount here, too, in the front setback.
Okay, yeah, here's the dotted line right here. That the minor nature of the encroachment, the constrained site of the lot, the slope of the existing parcel, and then also the desire to keep the soil stable and not cause additional erosion is appropriate, and therefore I make the findings outlined in the staff report and approve your project and make it clear that that the parking space that is noted on the plans, it's not part of the approval, and it needs to
Okay.
be removed. Okay. My decision is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days, and the Planning Commission also has oversight authority, and they review my actions, and they may decide during that same 10-day period to call the project up if it warrants additional discussion by the Planning Commission. And if that were to occur, Ms. Malazzo would contact you.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. And what was that letter that you mentioned? I'm not sure that I got that.
You weren't here when she gave them out.
Oh.
You can have my copy if you
Oh,
want.
okay.
Kind of hard. It's kind of
I've
hard
got
to
one as
read.
well.
Okay.
Or
Thanks.
can have it for the file. Okay?
Okay, next step, design review, and then building permit.
We're ready to submit today.
Great.
Can we bring that to you?
To the counter.
All right. All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Excuse me, right here.
The next item is 1535 Santa Barbara Street.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'll give all this to you. And I'll keep
Thank
it.
you, Susie. Jules, I need to put that for the television viewing audience. Let's just put that on top of your paper. There we go.
Did you receive a copy of the letter?
Yes, I did, thank you.
Thank you.
That's great.
Whenever your name's Martha.
Thank you. The project site currently developed with a church is just under 19,000 square feet. The area that we're dealing with today is on the corner of Arriaga and Santa Barbara Streets. The property's zoning is R3, which is multiple family residential, so this is a non-residential use. The zoning ordinance requires double setbacks for non-residential uses in residential zones. The proposed project involves the addition of 2 benches, which will be connected to some existing site walls on the property for purposes of having a place to sit down while you're waiting either for your pickup or just to visit. The improvements that have been seen by the Design Review Board have been given favorable comments. They're minor changes to the existing landscape wall and are actually going to be decorative, so there'll be an improvement over what currently exists. Staff's position that the addition of the 2 seating areas does not intensify the use of the wall of the area. The modification of the front yard is to secure an appropriate improvement, a place to sit and wait. So we are asking for approval of this project as submitted.
Thank you. What, the existing walls, being they're within, they're outside of 10 feet, so they didn't need a modification when they were built?
This one is not. It's
So it will have the little plaque and
Yes, it will. It'll have, yeah, it's on the, and it was approved by the, the landmark committee.
I just show that
We're
to the
picking up
audience.
The tile that's in the
the
fountain.
tile, decorative tile here is going to be beautiful.
Oh, okay.
And this is, we've actually picked this pattern off the tile that's in the fountain. There's tile around the base of the fountain. And this tile is exact replica of the old tile
Nice.
that's there. So,
Okay. Thank you.
thank you.
All right, I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there anybody here who would like to address the staff hearing officer on 1535 Santa Barbara Street? No, seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. I would like to note for the record that we received a letter on this project also from Ms. Paula Westbury expressing concerns with the project. I went out to the site and I visited and I read the staff report and looked at the surrounding neighborhood, and I think, or not I think, I agree with staff's analysis in that these benches enhance the public right-of-way. It provides a place to rest. It doesn't affect the sight visibility of cars traveling on Arriaga or Santa Barbara Street, and I didn't believe it affected my sight visibility when I turned off Arriaga to continue up Santa Barbara Street. Regarding the corner bench, was looking at the loading areas and red curbs, and looking to see, would people really be, is this a place where you'd really need a spot to wait for pickup? because there's not, I think the curb pickup ends, where's the tree? Around here. But I think it enhances the corner, and it provides uniformity between the two arched areas, and also the fact that it's being constructed or integrated with an existing wall. And so, given all those elements, I can make the findings in the staff report and approve the project. I would like to add a little bit to the finding. Gloria, on the third line, this is the second sentence. It starts, the benches which will provide a spot. Just add the benches which will be attached to an existing wall will provide a spot for relaxation. So just clarify that they are integrated with the existing wall. And then add the part that it doesn't affect the site distance on the corner of Santa Barbara and Arriaga Street. And with that, I make the revised findings and approve the project. There's no proposed conditions. And like I said, on the first project, my action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days, and they also have the oversight authority to call this up if they believe it warrants further discussion. And if that were to occur, Ms. Malazzo would contact you. Okay?
That's good, thank you.
Sure.
Thanks. I also want to thank you for all your help on this. You've been a wonderful asset, and you've been great, so thank you.
Thanks.
I don't know if the record could show that, but I'd like it to.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you.
And what are the next steps for me?
We're going to go back to design review, get a final approval, and then you'll submit for your building permit.
Okay. And
Okay? You can do that at the counter right now. Get back on an agenda for your final approval
at the okay.
at the zoning counter.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Okay, the last item is 2105 Anacapa Street. If the applicant would like to come up.
Thank you. Speaker slip.
Okay. So these are trash.
Yes. Actually, which one was that for? Santa Barbara?
No, this is Anacapa.
Yeah. These are old plans, and I'll be using the old plan. I do have the clean plan, but I only had one set, so I didn't want to write on it. When the application came in, it was requesting a couple modifications. Now they've been simplified.
Okay, so then after you
Yes.
discuss this with
I'll put the current one out here. That'd be a great idea. Okay, this project site's just under 9,500 square feet, located in the Upper East on the corner of Anacapa and Padre. Current development on site, as shown in the green outline, is an existing single-family residence here with a detached garage. The proposed project involves complete demolition of all structures on site and the rebuilding of a two-story single-family residence with attached garage, shown here in the yellow. Although the existing house is non-conforming as to its front, interior setbacks, the proposed house will actually reduce the amount of encroachment in this interior yard and along this frontage. It'll maintain the encroachment here with the new garage, expanding it into the lot, so this is a conforming improvement. This portion of the house will be rebuilt, and pursuant to current zoning ordinance requirements, is allowed for complete demolition and replacement of the nonconformancies. However, window and door changes in this facade and in this facade, and reduction of wall space, opening this up to a porch, require a modification approval. It's staff's position that this portion of the house, and only this portion, which is shown clouded, that is going to need a modification, rebuilds a house at an identical setback, at the same height, same roof pitch, just alterations into the wall opening. Need the modification. These are appropriate improvements that are part of the new architectural style being proposed for the site. They don't intensify the amount of encroachment or result in impacts to any adjacent neighbor, and that it's two street frontages. And staff feels that these are necessary improvements in order to secure the new home. The previous application, when it came in, had some open yard constraints associated with use of this second front yard as the open yard. The project has been revised so that that modification is no longer needed. And here is the revised proposed site plan showing, again, what you just saw, the new single-family residence with the alteration of windows and doors in the rebuilt area, but all other portions of the development meeting current zoning requirements. Staff is asking for approval of this project as submitted.
So these decks here, Roxanne, are less than 36 inches in height?
Yes.
Above the existing grade, that's correct.
Okay. All right, and what about in the rear area here? This is all less than 10 inches above existing grade in the setback?
These decks in here are 36 inches above.
Because in a setback, they can't exceed 10 inches in height.
And I'm sorry, I wasn't aware that those decks were elevated.
Well, in my site plan that I reviewed, it had barbecue pit, and it had a fountain, and it had a whole bunch of stuff.
It was discussed with the applicant that those installations would not be allowed in the setback, but I was not aware that there was raised terraces in this backyard within the 10-foot setback.
Okay, those would require a modification if they were to be moved forward to allow the encroachments into the interior setback. But we can continue the discussion today, and then you can decide
okay.
what you want to do. If you want to, so that concludes yours?
Yes, just on that note, though, typically raised decks in interior setbacks adjacent to other residential uses are not those type of modifications that are supportable by staff. So maybe we need to deal with the applicant on possible solutions that would not require modifications. The purpose and intent of the setback is separation. Raising outdoor areas of congregation is not an appropriate improvement for the setback area.
The
If you want to state your name.
My name's Brett Jordan, architect for the
Brett?
applicant, yes. The connection to the house is set back, is further from the setback than the line, so we'll be able to walk out
And drop down
and
to grade.
drop down to grade on those.
There's
So
a perfect solution.
The use of the elevated decks in the side yard setback is not important.
Okay. Did you want to do a presentation?
Yeah, basically, the lot is substandard for the E1 zone. It's about 60% of the minimum lot size, and in addition, the lot is further hindered from development by the two front yard setbacks. So even at 85% of the 0.38 FAR, I only have 800 square feet extra within the boundaries of the setbacks. Keeping the existing use here and diminishing the intensity of its frontage by adding the porch here allows to break into the footprint. And at this point, to be able to walk out at the same floor level is important to create these notches, because the lot drops 10 feet across the length here. And without being able to use this space, the access to grade wouldn't be accomplishable because the lot falls. So in order to articulate the building and create interest and for the best use of the property, allowing to rebuild in this section is important.
Another concern I had, I know my purview today is only the change of the windows in the doors, and by the architectural changes, you mean the opening this up and having a porch? Is that what?
Correct.
Okay. So it's just changes to the non-conforming portions of the building. But as part of our recent zoning ordinance amendments, we now allow on properties with two front yards, whether it's a corner lot or a through lot, that the secondary front yard can be used for the required outdoor open yard. And looking at this, looking at the elevations, I question what is your primary and what is your secondary front yard. I can see on the floor plan that your entry, your main entry, when people come to your house, would be from Anacapa Street. And so this could be determined to be your secondary front yard. I think when we envisioned the zoning ordinance amendments, it was a combination of the front door and where the garage is. But in this instance, on your floor plan or your site plan, you're tucking the parking in the back, so it's not it's not a visual dominance. It's tucked in the rear. So that was just another initial comment I had. And I see in this one it has the fountain in the barbecue area. But I think that was just my clarifications at this time. So I'd like to open the public hearing, and I have one request to speak. Slip?
One more. There you
Okay,
go.
2 requests to speak. The first is from Chuck
Bonds.
Mons. Thank you.
Bonds, like supervisor.
Okay, if you'd like to come and have a seat.
Sure.
And
It's turned
it's
on.
okay, and speak into the mic.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi, I'm a neighbor. Been up I live up on Anacapa Street. I've been up there for about 36, 37 years. I'm concerned about the setback of on what faces Anacapa Street. That the house that's built there now is really close to the street, as you can see when you go there. And it's a very small house, what exists there now. This is a much, much larger house. And it pulls the house right into the front. I mean, you see it as a street, excuse me. So I'm not happy with the modification that would allow that, because it brings the house too close to the street. That's my objections.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next speaker is Tony Fisher.
Good morning. I'm Tony Fisher. I live on Anacapa Street up on the next block. Could we open the drawings to the drawing that shows the existing?
The one that's outlined, this one has it here too. Would you want this one here?
Yeah, it's really hard to see up there, and so I'm trying to see where do we now have one building with a garage?
Yes, the garage is in the rear of the site, and then this open area, and then there's the existing home pushed up towards the
Okay,
corner.
but the garage is a separate building,
Correct,
and the garage is in the side yard.
correct.
And the house on that side will continue to be in the side yard.
Yeah.
So we're not rebuilding the garage.
The garage is being rebuilt. The ordinance allows for complete demolition and rebuild. The garage is being expanded to meet the minimum dimensions with a conforming improvement.
Okay, let me begin with, as you may know, the staff report did not include a site plan on the internet. It indicated it was forwarded to you under a separate attachment, which meant it was not possible to see the site plan as part of what was on the internet, which makes it difficult when one reads the staff report and the notice to understand really what is taking place. The notice does not mention that there is a modification being continued to the rear yards or the side yards. It only mentions that the only modification being considered is the modification to the windows and the frontage on the other two sides.
That's right.
It also mentioned that there was going to be a modification for open yard, and that's indicated in the staff report as removed. As I'm going to indicate later as I go through the staff report, I think you're totally defective in terms of notice, as well as description of what is taking place, including many, many errors in the description in the staff report regarding what's happening at this site. First of all, how was the lot area determined? Did anybody from city staff calculate the actual lot area based on the drawing? Could somebody tell me what on this drawing tells me the length and width of the lot?
You can scale it out.
There's a scale here.
Okay, do we have a scale?
Yes.
All right. I will tell you that I have looked at the assessor's parcel map, and based on looking at the assessor's parcel map, the lot size as shown on the staff report is overstated by enough. I did a rough calculation based on the assessor's parcel map, and I come up with a size that's probably 94, between 100 and about 94, 26 square feet. If that is true, the proposed
Addition exceeds the maximum allowed floor area ratio, thereby making the project ineligible for even approval, and that it was misrepresented or not correctly represented to the Single-Family Design Board, which, as you probably know from the staff report, voted 3-3 on whether they liked the project or not. And I am surprised that this project came forward to you before the Single-Family Design Board had at least come to some consensus about what they liked and disliked about the project. How was the slope of the lot determined by the staff? I think that's a question you need to answer to know if that is an accurate description of what was in the staff report. How was the size of the house that's in the staff report determined? Has that been recalculated to see that we have those numbers accurate? Or are those numbers inaccurate? Since I noticed the lot size appears to be wrong, I then have to ask, how were the other numbers determined? There appears to be an interpretation taking place here of what is allowed to be done with a legal non-conforming building. The general understanding has been that if you have a legal non-conforming building, when you tear it down, you lose all your legal non-conforming status.
That's not correct.
Well, that's what's stated in the staff report, but the staff report seems to suggest you can rebuild the same building. It doesn't say you can rebuild the same portion that's in the legal non-conforming and do a larger building in addition to that. So this interpretation basically wipes out what was intended when the downzoning of the city was done in '76 to cause, when buildings are torn down, to have the zoning ordinance push to have current new setbacks enforced. What you're basically telling people is that you can tear down any building and rebuild it as long as you keep the portion that's in the front yard. You don't make that any bigger, but you can rebuild everything else around it.
You can do a conforming addition to a non-conforming structure.
A conforming addition. This is not an addition. This is a tear down. And if you go back and look closely at the wording of the ordinance, it does not say you can do a conforming addition and keep, it doesn't say you can do a tear down and then call it a conforming addition, because it's not an addition, it's a tear down. I think you're off here on uncharted waters. I don't think this has been done before. If it has, it's been done erroneously. You can do it in the fire areas because you have a building destroyed. That's a different section of the code. So I think we're off here on a very serious misapplication of the ordinance. Now, the statement is that the 9,448 square foot lot, which is not an accurate number, is significantly smaller than the required 1,500. We agree with that. But there are lots of lots. It's not a unique hardship for this lot. There are lots of lots in the Upper East that don't conform. And so any statement in the staff report that leads you to believe that this is a uniquely small lot is untrue. There are other lots in the area that have 2 required front yards, and we want to continue to respect the front yards on both Padre and Anacapa. That's the intent of the zoning ordinance. The statement that says, given that the municipal code allows for the demolition and reconstruction of non-conforming structures, the residence could potentially be rebuilt in the proposed format without the need for modifications, I believe is a misstatement of what the zoning ordinance allows, and has not been, and maybe Roxanne has been doing that over the years, but should not have been doing that over the years, under the current and prior zoning ordinances.
It's been 10 minutes. Are you about wrapping it up?
I think this one has to go back to square one because the notice is not adequate, because you're not rebuilding the garage. You're rebuilding a garage as part of a house, so you're not even reconstructing the structure. You're not having a little building rebuilt at the same location, even if your interpretation is correct. You're now building, it's now a garage attached to a house. It's no longer a garage. So the whole impact on the neighborhood is changed. This one is too big for this corner. I think that's what the ABR, or Single Family Design Board, was telling you. The staff support of this seems to be misguided, and I would strongly recommend that you deny this one. Otherwise, it'll probably be added to the list of appeals.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to address the staff hearing officer on 2105 Anacapa Street? Seeing no one, I close the public hearing. I'd like to also note for the record, we received a letter from Ms. Paula Westbury on this project, also expressing concerns with it.
May I see the word?
Yeah, sure. I have read the staff report, and I visited the site and the surrounding neighborhood, and I also have concerns with the project, but what's in my purview right now is the change in the windows and the doors and the opening of the porch area. And our code does allow for non-conforming buildings to be demoed and rebuilt. And I believe that what you're proposing in terms of rebuilding and reconstruction, adding onto it, is consistent and is allowed by the code. And I like the fact that you are pulling the northern portion of the existing building out of the setback. You're not proposing to any additional floor area within the required setbacks. The height of the building staying the same. And the requested changes that are in my purview with the windows and the doors, I think those are appropriate improvements for this neighborhood. But and I think the house itself is really, it's nice architecture. I just have concerns regarding the size of it in relation to the neighborhood, but that's not in my purview right now because you are not asking for a setback modification. You're not asking for an open yard modification. the elements that are shown on this plan that are encroaching into the setbacks will be removed.
That's correct.
So, I think that was my comments. So I think given the scope of my purview and the window changes, I can make the findings in the staff report. However, I would like to change the findings. Right now, it says the staff hearing officer finds that the modifications are consistent with the purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance and are necessary to secure an appropriate improvement on the lot. The proposed window, door, and architectural elements to the one-story portion of the rebuilt structure will not provide additional floor area within the setbacks. And I'd like to strike out the first part of the next sentence where it says the amount of separation between the residence and the street is adequate and consistent with the development in the surrounding neighborhood. And, so cross that out, and just have the proposed architectural changes will upgrade and enhance the structure without impacts to the neighborhood. Because, like I said, what my purview is, the window changes I feel are appropriate. It is an existing situation. You have the rights under the zoning ordinance to demo and rebuild with your existing setbacks. So that's something you can do. You don't need to ask for relief from me. I think this area of Anacapa Street is kind of transitioning to the homes, in the neighbor house right next to it is a lot smaller. So had you been asking for an interior yard setback modification or open yard, I don't believe I could have supported that. I agree with Ms. Milazzo's comments earlier. But given the changes that you are proposing within the setbacks, I feel I can support those. Okay, so I approve the project subject to the condition. I don't even know if it's a condition. I will mark on the plans that the deck, the rear deck, it has to be less than 10 inches in height. The deck's out in the front. In the open yard area, has to be less than 36 inches in height, and then no barbecues or fountain-type structures are allowed in the setbacks. Okay? My action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days, and they also have the oversight authority that I explained earlier. And if either of those two instances were to occur, Ms. Milazzo would contact you.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Sure. So your next step would be to proceed back to the Single Family Design Board and follow up with them.
Thank you.
All right? Sure. And that concludes the meeting, so I adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.